Have you ever felt unheard, dismissed, or invisible?
Am I not being heard, or am I continually speaking to those who do not want to listen? Am I displaying characteristics of the wounded feminine?
Healing the wounded feminine begins with self-reflection, taking ownership of behaviors, and making changes that lead to empowerment and fulfillment. At some point, we realize that if someone is not listening, speaking louder does not help.
If disrespect is happening, silently remove yourself. What happens when the deepest truths are dismissed?
In the mythological tapestry of ancient Greece, few stories are as tragic as that of Cassandra, the doomed prophetess. Gifted with the ability to foresee the future yet cursed to never be believed, Cassandra's fate is a potent symbol of the archetypal wounded feminine. Her plight resonates through time, reflecting a profound psychological and emotional pattern experienced by many today, a phenomenon known as Cassandra syndrome. Cassandra's story originates in the epic traditions of ancient Greece.
She was a daughter of Priam, king of Troy, and was gifted with the power of prophecy by Apollo, the god of truth and prophecy. Yet, when she rejected Apollo's romantic advances, he cursed her. Though she would always speak the truth, no one would believe her.
The tragedy of Cassandra is not simply that she saw the future but that she was powerless to prevent it.
She foresaw the fall of Troy, the death of her family, and the destruction that would follow, but her warnings were dismissed as hysteria, madness, or mere ramblings.
Her voice, though imbued with truth, was invalidated by those around her.
Her fate was to watch, helplessly, as her world crumbled, bearing the emotional weight of knowing she was right while being treated as though she were wrong.
In the modern psyche, Cassandra's plight lives on as an archetypal wound, specifically, a wound of the feminine.
This archetype often appears in those who have experienced trauma, particularly in situations where their truth, emotions, or inner wisdom have been silenced or ignored. Cassandra syndrome can manifest in anyone, but it often surfaces in individuals who embody or are deeply connected to the feminine principle.
The wounded feminine is not exclusive to women, it refers to the repressed, undervalued, or unheard aspects of the feminine within both men and women. At its core, the feminine represents intuition, emotion, creativity, and the voice of inner wisdom.
When these aspects are dismissed or denied, the wounded feminine is born.
For many, Cassandra syndrome is the result of years, sometimes a lifetime, of feeling unheard. This may emerge in personal relationships, workplaces, or society at large. It's the experience of holding deep insight, emotional awareness, or visionary ideas, yet being met with disbelief, condescension, or outright rejection. The impact of this can lead to profound psychological wounds, isolation, self-doubt, anxiety, and depression. Cassandra syndrome is often found in those who have experienced repeated invalidation of their emotions, ideas, or concerns, struggle with self-expression or feel their voice doesn't matter, carry intuitive or visionary gifts that go unrecognized by others, have experienced trauma, particularly in contexts where their truth was denied or silenced. At its essence, Cassandra syndrome is about disconnection from one's own voice, from others who refuse to hear, and ultimately from a sense of personal power. The archetypal wound of the feminine is deeply tied to this disconnection. In Carl Jung's work on archetypes and the collective unconscious, the feminine and masculine energies represent two primary forces within the human psyche. The feminine, or anima, is associated with intuition, emotion, nurturing, and the subconscious. When the feminine is repressed or wounded, it often manifests as a shadow, an aspect of the self that remains hidden, denied, or disowned.
The shadow represents the parts of ourselves that we suppress or reject.
In the case of the wounded feminine, the shadow might manifest as self-doubt, fear of speaking out, or a deep mistrust of one's own emotions and intuition. Jung believed that integrating the shadow, acknowledging and embracing these rejected parts, was key to personal growth and individuation. Cassandra syndrome, through this lens, represents the rejected feminine. The inner voice of intuition, emotion, and creativity is either not trusted or dismissed by external forces, which leads to an internalized sense of powerlessness. Overcoming Cassandra syndrome requires not only healing the feminine within but also recognizing and embracing the shadow aspects of self-doubt, fear, and mistrust. It is through this process of integration that true empowerment and voice reclamation can occur. The journey to overcoming Cassandra syndrome and healing the wounded feminine begins with the act of reclamation, reclaiming your voice, your intuition, and your personal power, This process requires inner work, but it also demands an acknowledgement of the cultural and relational dynamics that have contributed to the suppression of the feminine.
Healing begins with recognition. Cassandra's fate was sealed because her truth was continuously denied.
In real life, denying or dismissing our emotional pain or intuition only deepens the wound.
Acknowledge the times when your voice has been silenced, your intuition dismissed, or your emotions invalidated. Recognition of the wound is the first step in reclaiming your power. Trust your inner wisdom. Cassandra was cursed not because her visions were false, but because they were true. Part of overcoming Cassandra syndrome involves relearning to trust yourself.
Intuition and emotion are powerful sources of inner guidance, and even though they may have been dismissed by others, they remain true. Cultivating trust in your own voice, whether through journaling, meditation, or creative expression, is essential in restoring this connection. Jungian shadow work is critical in the healing process. This involves acknowledging the parts of yourself that you've disowned, the doubts, fears, or insecurities that have formed as a result of not being heard.
Rather than pushing them away, invite them in.
By shining a light on these shadow aspects, you begin the process of integration, which leads to greater self-awareness and empowerment. Express your truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Healing the wounded feminine means speaking your truth, even when it's difficult. This doesn't necessarily mean shouting your insights from the rooftops. It can be as simple as voicing your feelings in a relationship or sharing your creative ideas with trusted friends.
Each act of expression is a step toward breaking the cycle of silence.
Seek support in the journey.
While Cassandra was isolated in her suffering, you don't have to be. Surround yourself with individuals or communities that honor and respect your voice.
Healing the wounded feminine often requires external validation and support, especially in the early stages of reclamation. Whether through therapy, coaching, or a trusted circle, find those who will listen and reflect back the value of your voice. Cassandra's curse is not merely her own, it is a collective wound, deeply embedded in the stories we tell and the structures that surround us. But it is also a call to action, an invitation to heal and transform.
The story of the wounded feminine is not the end.
By acknowledging the wound, trusting your inner wisdom, integrating the shadow, and reclaiming your voice, you have the power to move from silence to song.
If Cassandra's voice had been heard, the fate of Troy might have been different.
In your own life, reclaiming your voice can change the course of your personal history.
It can lead to healing, empowerment, and a deep sense of alignment with your true self.